Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here, and I'm very excited to make this video because what we're going to be doing today is breaking down the 7 most important lessons that took me from $0 a month in 2018 to $1 million a month in 2024. I've reflected upon these last 7 years in business since I started, and I've been able to reduce my entrepreneurial journey and experience to 7 key principles. And what I'm going to do in this video is explain these principles to you in step-by-step form, and I'm going to show you what lessons I learned and when. Now, if you don't know who I am and you have no idea who I am and whether or not you should listen to me, well, I can just show you where I live quickly, because these lessons here that I'm about to explain on this whiteboard, they put me in a very nice house and a very nice place. As you can see here, this is my house. I live on the Palm in Dubai, yada, 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 flex over, thank you, authority bill. Right. I hate having to do that, but the game's the game, I suppose. So let's get into it. Without further ado, we're going to start with 2018. Now, I'd like to give you a warning that as we progress through the lessons, once we get past lesson really 4 towards 5, these ones are not very obvious at all. These ones, they might seem pretty trite, or you might sort of already have some understanding, or you might have already learned a few of these yourself. But once we get to 5, 6, and 7, you won't have considered them before, right? And I've also got some other important things to go through on the side here. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that I learned in 2018 was never to quit. Understand that your first year in business, you're not trying to succeed, you're not trying to win. You should just try to not die, at least in a work sense, if that makes sense. And so what we're looking up here in 2018 is don't try to win, don't try to succeed, just try to not quit. Okay, it's the best strategy that a beginner can develop, because the first year in business is going to be the hardest. It is a true trial by fire. The universe, God, whatever you believe in, is going to basically say to you, hey, you're just going to have to suffer, right? And so instead of trying to win and get the 10 grand a month, just try not to quit. Because what we're trying to do at this point is not fail. And if you don't quit, you can't fail. If you quit, you fail. That's as simple as that. That's how an entrepreneur fails. As soon as they're out of the game, they fail. But it doesn't matter how much it sucks, as long as you keep going, you always stand a chance of winning, right? And so this is the first lesson I learned early on. And the reason that I'm able to tell you this is because when I started my first business in 2018, my first agency, whilst I was doing an apprenticeship at the same time in sales, I did it with a lot of other people. And what I mean by that is there were a lot of other entrepreneurs who started at the same time as me, who later on went on to quit. And basically, when I say quit, I mean either you just stop trying to be an entrepreneur, or you quit the thing that you tried. So for example, if you start, if your first business, you want to be a social media marketing agency person, right? But then within 6 months, you shiny objects into to drop shipping, and then within another 6 months, you've gone to faceless YouTube channels. This is what I mean by quitting. It's when you pick something, but you don't stick to it. It doesn't mean, just because you're going from one vehicle to another, it doesn't mean you're not an entrepreneur, but when you quit, you're gonna mess it up. So what I'm saying here is, I know a lot of people from this time who message me every now and then, and they see the YouTube channel now, and they see the money I'm making, and they're like, oh, I knew you were always gonna do it, I knew you always had it in you. I was like, and they're like, oh, I wish I just carried on. I said, well, dude, the only difference between me and you is that you quit and I didn't. And so understand, in your first year of business, you're gonna set a goal, probably $10,000 a month or something, and when you set a goal, you are negotiating with God or the universe, right? Whatever celestial being you believe in. But essentially, when you set a goal, you're writing a contract with the universe. You're shaking hands with the universe. And you're saying to the universe, I want this. And the universe is going to ask you for something in return. And the only real bartering power, the only real currency that you can use to exchange for the goal through this negotiation to the universe is suffering and pain. It's how much you can take. I'm trying not to use the Rocky quote there. How much you can take and keep moving forward. But essentially, never quit, set your goal and just go after it until you get it. Just do not quit. That's the first lesson I learned, because you can't really go through any more reflection and more lessons and iterations of character and idea if you quit. It's just pretty simple. So kind of the most important thing. Now, the second thing that I learned is sales. So the thing that really got me from 0 to 10K a month was just sheer bloody will. Just getting up and just putting myself through as much suffering as I possibly could for 12 hours a day, going back to sleep and then repeating that. It was not fun, but once I did it, I got 10 grand a month. And then this was when I finished my apprenticeship, which was basically my sort of stepping stone into the business world, because I dropped out of uni earlier than this. And at this point, I finished my apprenticeship, I had a bunch of clients on board, and so after that, I sort of was doing 10 grand a month, and then I went from 10 to 30k a month in 2019. And the biggest lesson that I learned here was that sales is the most important skill to develop in business. Because my first year, during my apprenticeship and also the beginning of my agency, all I would do is cold call and sell. That was literally my entire life. I think I made like 300 cold calls a day, probably like 100, 150 for my agency and 200 for my work, for my apprenticeship. It was just a sales apprenticeship. But what this meant is that when I finished my apprenticeship and went into my own office and I had my own sort of space and stuff to build a business, I had the most important skill I needed to just rapidly grow the revenue of the company. And so in 2019, I learned that sales is the most important skill in business. It really is as simple as that. I can tell you an interesting story here as to why I dropped out of university. Back in, I think it was 2017, when I was at uni, when I was sort of like 18, I basically was reading a book called What You See Is What You Get by Alan Sugar, or Lord Alan Sugar as he's known in the UK. He's a billionaire, he's a pretty cool dude. And in that book, I was reading it, and it said that the most important skill to develop in business is sales. And so I go to my tutor, my lecturer at university the following day, and I inquisitively say, hey, his name was Raphael. I say, Raphael, from what I understand from billionaires in business, the most important skill to learn is sales. When do we learn how to sell in the course? And Raphael said, well, we don't teach you how to sell in the university course. And I said, why? And he said, well, it's because none of the lecturers have really had their own business, so they don't know how to sell. So we just teach the theory of business. I dropped out the next day. True story, right? So that's the second thing I learned. Sales is the most important skill. The reason I had this massive jump of income here is because I simply learned how to persuade, and I learned how to actually get people to do what I wanted. And what I wanted them to do is give me their money so I could give them value. And when you can learn how to do that, you're going to steamroll everyone and destroy everyone. So following these sort of fairly obvious, lessons that are pretty universally understood, the third thing I learned was know what you want. So once you become quite competent at building value and persuading people to buy things from you, and once you've survived your first couple of years in business, or at least this was my experience, my leverage in going from 30, this is all about increasing income. This is all about, these lessons here are all about taking you to different income levels, as they took me to different income levels. And so what I learned between 30 and 100k a month in year 3 here was I had to know what I wanted. Because what started to happen in year 2 is I sort of became quite comfortable because I was now surviving. I had enough money to, survive and pretty much just do what I wanted. However, I didn't really have much vision for anything beyond this. And so the danger you have after your first couple of years in business is once you've alleviated the pain of having to survive and just having to sort of sit around and make some money, you cause a bit of a plateau, a bit of a rift. Now, I stayed at 30 grand a month for probably 6 months, this is one of my deepest plateaus. I just stayed there for a long, long time, purely because I didn't know what I wanted. I was just getting up and just working aimlessly. But you might have heard of something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs before, where it's like a triangle, and at the bottom, it's the denotion or the reductive denotion of human needs, right? And what we need to actually survive or be happy or whatever. And, at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so you can see this over here, we've got survival, and basically we've got all the biological imperatives down here, like shelter, food, water. And then we've got love and relationships and some stuff and some safety. And then at the top here, we have self-actualization. And I would prefer to call this self-transcendence because I think it's a cooler way to put it. But the point here is once in business, Maslow's hierarchy of business needs, if you've survived year 2 and you're making 6 or minus 6 figures, you have fulfilled your base level business needs, and you now need to spend a lot of time asking yourself what you want and figuring out what you want to actually do with your life. Because if you don't do that, if you don't think about the long term, if you don't think about a big 30, 40, 50 year goal, then you're going to stay stuck around here forever, which is where most entrepreneurs get stuck. Most entrepreneurs, they just quit. So that's 90% of your competition you don't have to worry about because they're just going to leave and quit. So you don't have to worry about them. But 90% of the people who make it through this, so 10%, the 90% of the 10% that actually start making some money, they end up just stuck here. They never get past 6, multi-6, maybe just about 7 figures. And the reason they stay here is because they don't plan a bigger vision. Is they set out, they achieve what they initially set out to achieve, which was just make some money and buy a nice car so they can feel loved, which is me, right? I'm projecting that. And then yeah, they just get stuck because they don't know what they're working for. He who has a why can bear almost any how. He who does not have a why will not bear any how. That's just Nietzsche for you, right? And so you have to figure out what you want and get clear on it. Nice big long-term vision. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck. Trust me, it nearly happened to me. It nearly got me. Now, the fourth thing I learned upon reflection is the importance of a mentor. Now, I know this is painfully ironic where someone's teaching you how to make money online, and then conveniently they say it's all about having a mentor, and then lo and behold, they sell a course and a mentorship, and so I'm not going to do that to you, right? I've got no interest. I'm not going to say anything. So what I learned at this point, right before this big sort of jump in my income here, is it's all about mentor. Now, what you'll notice here is my income doesn't really grow at this point. I go from 100k a month to 100k a month, but this is because in year 3, I used to run an agency called Northflow Consulting. You can go and Google it. It's still an active website. We don't have any clients anymore because we got rid of them all. But yeah, you can see northflowconsulting.com. It's actually what the agency, you can see the result. It's a real thing, right? I'm not just making this up. We got to 100 grand a month with that agency. At our peak done for you status, we had 64 done for you clients. So we helped gyms get more customers. And the thing is that 64 done for you clients, that's just 64 big headaches. And so we were making 100 grand a month, but it was not a very nice 100 grand a month to make because you got like 5 media buyers and then customer support. We had this ridiculously large team for a small level of income. I know it's not a small level of income, but trust me, when you get to that point, you have that many clients, it's a nightmare. So in 2021, obviously sort of right before this COVID time, we transitioned from done for you to done with you, where we stopped selling done for you marketing services and we started selling a high ticket program. And so what this meant is we made the same amount of money, but our profit margins massively increased. So at this point, we might have been making maybe 30% profit margins because we have all these expenses. But at this point, with the program, we're making like 70% profit margin. So we kind of like doubled our profit, maybe even a little bit more than doubled it in 1 year. And that's another important lesson, is that revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. Now that's only true if you have a cash flow business. If you're trying to start a huge company and you're trying to massively scale a software or a platform, then it's all about revenue, it's all about growth, it's all about users, it's all about exponential expansion, right? But in this game that we play online, it's about profit, right? And so at this point, we basically went from 30% margins to 60%, 70% margins and just doubled the amount that we were keeping each month. But at this point, I learned the profit thing, but the main thing I learned at this point was the mentor, because this is sort of when Sam Ovens was introduced. So contextualized, the first program that I took to get to 10 grand a month, 30 grand a month was Consulting Accelerator by Sam Ovens. Boo-hoo, shame, you can't buy it anymore. It's not on the market because Sam doesn't do it anymore. However, once I got to this point, I knew Sam was having a pretty big impact on my life. But to make this transition in terms of doubling our profit, we took a second program by Sam Ovens, or consulting.com, called Up-Level Consulting. And that was how we built the program, and that's where I learned a lot of my business knowledge as well. But at this point, this was when I became a millionaire. And when I became a millionaire after doing 100 grand a month for a couple of years, or at least at higher margins and stuff, we actually became in-cash millionaire, like cash liquid millionaire. And when this happened, it dawned on me like, okay, this is just the mentor thing in play. Because what I'd done is I didn't quit, first of all, right? So this is my sort of first 4 years in business. Didn't quit, learned how to sell. Once I hadn't quit and learned how to sell, I made a bunch of money. Then I figured out what I really wanted, which was a big long-term vision. But the easiest way to get what you want is to find someone that's already done what you want and just listen to them and copy them. And that's what you're doing in this YouTube video right now. So you can have virtual mentors that you don't pay, whose courses you don't buy, whose YouTube you watch, right? And so this is the thing I learned. It's all about just having a mentor. Finding someone who knows what they're talking about, who's done what you want to do, who's made money online or become a millionaire online in your space, and you just hang on their every word. That's literally how I did it. It's as simple as that. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting. Because lesson number 5 is a very big lesson for me, a very big lesson. And that is paradigm. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth does that mean? Paradigm? It sounds like some sort of weird band from the 90s, right? That makes weird music. Well, when I say you need a mentor, what I'm actually saying is the mentor doesn't teach you what you need to know. They teach you what you need to see. So everyone has it backwards, because when you have a mentor, what a lot of people are looking for from a mentor is like instructions. It's like, oh, tell me what to do and when to do it. No. What the mentor should provide you, at least the good one, is they should be providing you their paradigm. You do not want to be mentored on instructions on what to do. You want to be mentored on perspective. So let me explain this. When I'm learning from someone, when I'm learning from a mentor, I'm not trying to understand like specifically what actions they took to become successful. I'm trying to understand the perspectives that enabled them to make the decisions on what actions were right and what actions were wrong. Perspective or paradigms, these words are interchangeable. Perspective or paradigm are interchangeable synonyms to describe this phenomenon. It is the most important thing, right? Being able to see the world in a certain way, because how you see reality is often how reality will actually manifest to you. And so what I learned from having a mentor is it's all about perspective. It's all about being able to see the world accurately. You won't understand this and what the hell I'm saying until you've actually done this, until you get to this point. But trust me, it's all about your paradigm. Because I'm a millionaire, multi-millionaire, right? At this point in my life, I'm very fortunate for that, very grateful. And you and I do not see the world in the same way. That's not supposed to be some sort of ego play, like I'm better than you. But the point I'm making is us millionaires, like we don't compute information and see the world the same way that everybody else does. People who have no money and people who have a lot of money, we do not experience the same reality. People who have a lot of money, I'm not including myself in a lot of money, but millionaires, I can include myself in that. Millionaires, we do not see the world in the way you see the world. So when you're observing a situation in business or in life, and I'm observing a situation in business or in life, we will see two totally different things. And I will have different mental models, abstractions and heuristics to make more informed and better judged decisions than you will. Because this is the thing, is you might be wondering what's going in these boxes here. Well, I can tell you that getting to the point where I was making 100 grand a month, that does not say cock, it's not supposed to say cock. Might be a bit of a Freudian slip there. It's supposed to say work. So getting from 0 to 100k a month for me was all about how hard I worked. However, getting from 100k a month to $1 million a month was all about my decisions. So you don't really have to worry too much about the paradigm thing. Although it's very important, you want to try and adopt the millionaire paradigm as soon as you can. And if you're wondering how to adopt the millionaire paradigm or the millionaire's perspective, just study them. Watch like YouTube videos like this, for example. Like I'm giving you my paradigm in these videos. So just spend as much time watching them as you can, or other videos as well. But the point I'm making here is going from 0 to 100 grand a month. For me, in the first 4 years, it was all about how hard I worked. It was all about just grind, and just conscientious, pure will onto pen and paper or screen and just working as hard as I can. But I found that the hard work is still important past this point. You still need to work hard, right? Otherwise you're just going to fail. However, going from 100 grand a month to $1 million a month has been way more about the decisions I make than how hard I work. And this is all because of the paradigm, right? It's all about like your perspective. You're just trying to broaden your brain so that you see the world in a more accurate light. It's so hard to articulate how to do this. The only thing I can tell you to do is just work really hard and listen to a mentor and just watch what they do and how they speak and how they see the world, and you'll pick up on it, right? But yeah, this is a huge differentiation here. This is kind of like a equator in my journey or in my progress. Understand, it's getting something off the ground and becoming a millionaire is about working as hard as you can. But once you've sort of got some money and you've got some understanding, it becomes far more about your decisions. And so I'm talking about the decisions on who you hire, or how you invest your money, or what sort of product you should build, or what sort of market you should be in, or what sort of content you should create. Like, it's all about decisions past this point. And your decisions come from your paradigm. And so your paradigm is your perspective, and your perspective is basically who you learn from. And so if you learn from, and this also comes from who you want. So you have to know what you want, so you can find a mentor who can get you what you want. And then once you've got that mentor, you find their perspective and how they would see the world and how they would manipulate reality to achieve this goal. And then once you understand that paradigm, you can start filtering your decisions through it. So it's all about decisions past this point. I'm hoping that makes sense. I'm hoping you're sort of starting to understand. So now that we've got that bit out of the way, what did I learn going from 250k a month to a minimum? Because this is probably the biggest jump in income here, where I'm going like 100k profit, blah blah blah, 100k a month. Okay, we start Imperium. By the end of that year, we're doing 250k. Okay, well this is last year, we started 250k, and then suddenly by the end of we're doing a minimum. That's a big goal. So the main thing that I learned last year is something called goal contingency. And this might not seem like a very big thing, but what I'm learning as I go through my years in entrepreneurial journey, for lack of better words, is building a successful business is not about building a successful business, it's about building a successful character. You don't have business problems, you have personal problems that reflect on your business. And that's a paradigm or a perspective that I learned from my mentor, Sam Owens. And so it's not about the business becoming successful, it's about you becoming successful. And if you become the person that can grow the business will grow. It's through you that the business grows, it's not just the business. So what I had to do in last year, and I can tell you this is quite a painful lesson that I learned last year, is that like my goal for a long time at the beginning of starting everything was just to make like 250 or 500 grand a month. And last year I launched my product Easy Grow, which is basically our flagship program that helps agency owners, coaching consultants get clients, right? Don't worry, it's not $997, I'm not going to ask you for an email. Do not worry, I'm just telling you what I did, right? So hold your horses, and I'm not trying to pitch you something. But I launched my program, a new version, it's very good. And we went from 250k a month to 500k a month, 600k a month, just like that. Within 2 years. February 2023 was a launch. By March 2023, April 2023, we'd gone from doing 250 grand a month to 700 grand a month. Just because I've launched this one great product, right? And we still sell it to this day. And the mistake I made was not accounting for how quickly we become successful, but more importantly, I did not have a goal contingency. And a goal contingency is a very simple idea. What it means is that when you're about to hit your goal, you set another one that's further away. And this is kind of the thing, is in life I have my big vision. I have my long-term, big 40, 50-year vision. It's going to take me a long time to achieve. And in order to achieve that vision, I have to achieve incremental goals, right? And so what I'm looking to do every time I set a goal is when I get this close to hitting the goal, I never gratify it. I always set another one out in advance. And so I actually learned this from long distance running. So I used to run like a marathon, unofficially it wasn't like a competitive one, just did it during COVID. But I used to do long distance cross country running in the countryside in the UK. These last years I've done quite a lot of running. And what I would do sometimes is I would challenge myself by going for a run, but not setting a target for how long I wanted to run for. I wouldn't set a timer, I wouldn't set a distance, I would just put Strava on my phone and I would just run. And this is how I basically ran a marathon, is I was I'd get to 30, 40 kilometers, whatever, I'd be in like severe pain. But I would tell myself, I'd be running down a road, right? It's cross-country running, so I'm running through fields and roads and stuff. And I'd start running down a road. And I'd tell myself, okay, Charlie, when you get to the end of this road, when you get to that red Fiat 500 over there, God forbid Fiat 500, right? When you get to that red Fiat 500 over there, you can stop running. But then maybe 20 yards before I get to the Fiat 500, I'd see around the corner and be like, okay, when we get to that telegraph pole over there, you can stop running. And that's how I trained myself to just run for hours on end without a break, is I would tell myself I can stop it just at the point that I'm about to hit. But when I'm about to hit that, I'd look further down the road, I'd pick my head back up, and I'd keep running to the next thing. And then I'd get quite like, okay, Charlie, when you get to the foot of that hill, when you get to the foot of that oak tree, you can stop running. And then as soon as I'm about to get there, I'll be like, okay, well, once we get to the sheep fence, we can stop running. And I would this is how I learned to run a very long distance. And this is also what I've been doing in business now. But I stupidly last year didn't learn my lesson and didn't do that. So I basically got to 500 grand a month, 600, 700 grand a month like that. And I just chilled out. Shamefully, I just didn't do anything for like 3-4 months. Well, I did things, I still worked on the business. Credit where it's due, I did spend 9 months building the product and it was hell on earth to make, so I did need some time off anyway. But a month would have sufficed. But, I got to I went to Stockholm in June and sort of just had a midsummer in Scandinavia with a bunch of friends and had some pies. And then I went to Marbella for like 2-3 weeks. And then I went to Nice in France, and then I went to Dubai, and I just didn't do anything. And this was because like I hit my goal and I stupidly thought, like, oh, I've done it now. I always wanted to make 500 grand a month. That was my goal, right? And so I did it and I was just like, oh, great. So I didn't have a goal contingency. So just be very careful here. When you get close to your goal or when you're about to hit your goal, set another one. To think of it like the long distance runner, like I was, where I'm running and I don't even have a goal on, like, I obviously have a destination goal where I'm looking to get to, but the way I'm getting there is by jumping from different goalposts to goalposts and I'm never sort of stopping. And that's that. So that's lesson number 6. Now, lesson number 7 is one that I've learned or reflected upon pretty recently. And that is to be careful when sacrificing things. Now, I'm going to give you a little quote that I came up with. I'm going to give you a little quote. Be careful when sacrificing your youth for wealth, because you have a lifetime to make money, but not a very long time to be a child. I have no regrets. I sacrificed these last 7 years to become successful and wealthy and become a multi-millionaire and live a better life than 99.99999% of people ever will. I am blessed, I am fortunate, and I am eternally grateful for these lessons and the pain I put myself through. It's worth it. However, be careful when sacrificing your youth for wealth, because you have a lifetime to make money and a short time to be a boy. There are times in these last years here where part of me wishes that I had been a little bit more childish and I hadn't taken myself so seriously and I had given myself a little bit more time to just be a boy and be a kid and be a teenager and be that person in my early 20s. And the truth is that I did go to university and I went on a 6-month bender pretty much, although I did read a lot during uni and I did get some clients during uni. But sometimes, man, just chill. Okay? Because what I'm about to tell you and what's going to fit into this lovely box here, you might be wondering what this word is. What I've learned, the big lesson, the real big lesson that I've learned, is it's all about time. If I had to comprise all of my lessons in the last 7 years into one word, it would be time. You've got plenty of this, and don't rush. Don't rush. You want to make haste slowly. Be patient and understand that it's going to take time. You might think, oh, Charlie, you went from 0 to 10k a month in your first year, and I've been doing it for 2 years, and I haven't made 5 grand a month, and you're a millionaire in the first 4 years. But what you're not seeing here is I started reading business books, studying entrepreneurship, and reading the idiosyncrasies of history when I was like 15. Like, I started my first business when I was 18, sure, or like 19 really, but before I started my first business, I'd read like 200 business books. I'd listened to every single interview I could of successful entrepreneurs. And I'd also had a bunch of like weird little businesses in the past, like selling fruit outside my house, or I used to go to my great grandma's home on my mum's side. She's called Big Nanny. Unfortunately, she's dead now, bless her. She was very deaf, very blind, but my sister and I would take boxes of celebrations to this old people's home and just go out and knock on doors and sell them for like 10p. I've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for like 10 years now, like since I was like 16. So like even before I started, I had 2 years of practice. So you'd never compare yourself to anyone because your situations are completely different. So, you know, a lot of people start and they get 10 grand a month real quick. A lot of people, it takes a lot longer. And that's purely because of who they were before they started. Remember, we don't have business problems, we have personal problems that reflect on our business. And this is basically what I learned. And it's all about time. Be careful when sacrificing your youth for wealth, because you have a lifetime to make money and a short time to be a boy. I'm not saying you shouldn't sacrifice things to become successful. You absolutely should. But I'm just saying that sometimes if your mates want to go for a pint, it might not be a bad idea, because you haven't got a long time to enjoy your youth. You know, but you've got a very, very long time to make money. So that's what I've learned in the last 7 years. I hope this video finds you well. Ciao, ciao, ciao.